Hello, I'm your host Jim McClean. Welcome back to another episode of the Banterflix Movie Review Show. Yes, I'm back in the studio, viewers. I can hear you say, who'd let that back on the television? Well, thank you very much to my guest host for the last few weeks. While you pause for breath, let's see what movies we'll be talking about tonight. We'll be reviewing Joker, Folie, Deux, which is out in cinemas now. I'll be chatting with director Dominic O'Neill about his movie Haunted Ulster Live. And our pick of the screams for spooky season continues with Gav Logan from Fright Club NI's latest choice, Haunt. So that's what we've lined up for you in the studio. Yes, viewers, Rafiki somewhere is holding up a young lion to say the king is back. I'm back in the big chair. So before we go any further ado, let me introduce my guest. So I'm joined by Dr. Nicole Hamilton.
Hello.
And one of the lovely co-hosts who stepped in while I wasn't feeling too well, Adam Neeson.
Hello, Jim.
And at this point, I should also thank Robert J. Simpson, Joe McElroy, and the lovely Bill Taylor. All did a great job, but the king is back. Without any further ado, let's talk about some movie news.
Good afternoon. Mr. Reed, are you interested in learning more about the Church of Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
Wow! No, you read more than we do. No, seriously, Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed.
Well, ladies, I think it is time.
Time for what?
Time for enlightenment.
Oh. Mr. Reed?
Welcome.
We need to return to the church.
If you aren't ready to leave, you'll have to exit through the back of my house.
So, which door?
It's a simple choice, but it should not be made simply. Belief or disbelief.
What happens if we choose the wrong door?
So that's a look at the trailer for The Heretic. It's out on the 1st of November here. Hugh Grant is dipping his toe in the horror genre. Anybody maybe seen him in the last Paddington movie might have been terrified enough, but we'll not talk about that now. Latest film from A24, new trailer dropped earlier this week. I'm excited. Nicole, come to you first. What about you? You intrigued by The Heretic?
It has definitely been a while since Hugh Grant kind of went into the horror genre. I feel like the last time that I saw him do anything like that was Lair of the White Worm, and that is a trip. So not that I'm saying that it's going to be anything like that, I'm assuming, but the combination of him and Sophie Thatcher, who I really, really love, I think is going to make for a really good film, I hope. It looks really interesting.
Yeah, Nicole, I'm intrigued by this because, hey, as much as I love The Lair of the White Worm, we do also have that film, a young, sexy Peter Capaldi with kilts and bagpipe. I don't know, this looks very different. I'm intrigued by this, and I think Hugh Grant's on a bit of a run at the minute of just doing left field choices and kind of popping up where you would least expect him. So yeah, 1st of November, I can't wait. Adam, you're a horror lover like myself. What about you? You intrigued by this?
It's definitely Hugh Grant's scariest role since music and lyrics. I do love Hugh Grant. I loved him in Dungeons & Dragons last year. And being a little weird creep suits him. Sophie Thatcher, fantastic. Love her in Yellow Jackets. Thought she was great in The Boogeyman. And this just looks like, you know, you see the A24 logo on horror and you kind of know that you're going to get something weird and creepy. And this continues that run. So hopefully it's good. Thankfully coming out during Halloween season, so at least there is something to check out in the big screen.
Now, I know, Adam, throughout October we are going very heavy on spooky season. Tonight, I know we've got a few horror movies. We're talking about a film that's out later this year, November, with Heretic. But also, we're going to be very shameless since I'm back on the show. And later this month, see the return of the Dark Hedges International Film Festival. I thought we'd shamelessly play our little trailer.
With anticipation.
So that's a look at the trailer for our very own Dark Hedges International Film Festival. Check out the website, loads of fantastic stuff happening throughout the city, loads of witchy stuff going on just in time for Halloween. That's things that are still to come. Let's talk about a movie we have seen this week with Joker, Folie, Deux.
When I first saw Joker, when I saw you,
the whole world smiles with you.
for once in my life, I didn't feel so alone anymore.
When you're laughing, the sun comes shining.
So that's a look at the trailer for Joker, Folie, Deux. Joaquin Phoenix is back as Arthur Fleck from the 2019 feature, which is a huge blockbuster success. Won awards at the Venice Film Festival, other festivals I think as well. Now we have the sequel that has been long in the works, long muted pretty much since that first film proved to be such a success at the box office. Joaquin Phoenix is back, as I say. This time he's joined by Lady Gaga as the Harley Quinn of this Elseworld, I guess we'll call it, venture for Joker. So Nicole, start with you. What do you think of this?
I wasn't a fan of the first one, so whenever it came out that Lady Gaga was going to be in it, I was kind of hopeful because I thought she's somebody that I really love and find just a really interesting and charismatic performer and actor. So I thought that she would add a lot of like interesting dynamics to the film and to the character of Arthur Fleck. So I started off kind of hopeful at the start of the film. And then as it went on, it kept going and I didn't enjoy it. I find it quite dull. Usually I'm a big fan of like courtroom dramas and that sort of vibe, and this one just kind of didn't have the intrigue that I usually enjoy from those sorts of films. It didn't have the set pieces that I would have wanted from a musical of the caliber that I was kind of expecting from this, because I thought the trailer actually made all of the musical sequences look really bombastic and really fun and kind of going back to like the 40s, 50s, 60s kind of aesthetics of particularly like Bob Fosse films. So I was really hoping for something like that, and it just kind of missed the mark for me on almost every single thing. But especially Lady Gaga as Lee, I was really, really disappointed by her and the kind of lack of character I feel like she has. She just seemed to not exist outside of what he wanted, which maybe was the point, but it didn't work for me at all.
So it's fair to say you didn't like the film, Nicole. Fair to say you didn't like it. Now, I am not a big fan of the previous film in this. I'm not a big fan of Todd Phillips as a director. I mean, even more so when I wasn't a fan of the Hangover movie, and then even more so when he did the Hangover Part 2. So he doesn't have a great track record for me with sequels. Perversely, there's something about me, maybe I didn't mind this. I went in with absolute zero expectations. I agree with everything you say, apart from I do think there are some individual great moments in the film. I think there's some great performances. I think Joaquin Phoenix is always watchable. I think there's a couple of individual moments. There's a courtroom dance musical number I thought was fab. I genuinely thought was fab. I wanted more of that. The thing with the musical, and I love musicals, you have to get your cast, your talent on screen to be able to go from talking normally to we are now, to suddenly singing for no apparent reason and everyone's in full gusto. I don't think Folie Deux does that. I understand why they're trying to do that, in the sense that we have Joker, Lee, other characters in this are trying to use music as a healing mechanism to kind of to get in touch with their fractured psyche, whatever way you want to put that, and deal with their issues and their trauma. Interesting idea. I applaud what it tried to do, and that it tried to do something a little bit different, and the fact that Todd Phillips, yes, you can still see all the reference points, but this is him trying to do something on his own, where in the last movie he cloaked that in Scorsese's Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, which I think earned it a lot of good grace. Now, If ever there was someone I knew loved the Joker, has umpteen copies on Blu-ray, I'm surprised, viewers, he's not sitting before us dressed as Arthur Fleck. And if I was Robert De Niro, I would be very worried at this point. Adam, what did you think of Joker Folie à Deux?
As a man who hates the Joker, the first movie, like you say, it has a lot of interesting ideas, but it feels like a movie that's both ashamed to be a sequel and ashamed to be a musical. Like you said, I was expecting some Bob Fosse references because at the start you see a poster for Sweet Charity, which I was like, oh, hold on. And then there's a reference to the Umbrellas of Cherbourg that I was like, oh, maybe Todd Phillips has his head screwed on for this one. And then the movie just kind of keeps going and going and going, and there is no through line to each scene. It just happens and happens. Then you get to the courtroom scene and he's doing the Charlie Kelly bird law voice that just had me thinking, why am I sitting watching this? But, you know, there is good performances in it. You know, Joaquin Phoenix can really do no wrong, although he does feel in autopilot a bit. Lady Gaga, again, autopilot, but she's still a great actress and a great performer. The plot overall isn't really necessary, and like you're saying, it is a good idea. And there's people online saying, oh, you just don't get it. You just don't get it. And it's like, I do get it, and it's a smart idea to have a sequel sort of talk about the first one and the expectations of the first movie and the legacy the first movie had on its audience and a certain sector of the audience. But they didn't achieve what they set out to do, and it just wasn't well constructed in any sort of way, to the point by you get to the end, it's sort of laughable what happens to the character of Arthur Fleck. It becomes so pathetic that you think, what was even the point of this guy? And famously on the podcast, I've talked about watching the Joker 3-4 times in the cinema because I didn't know if I enjoyed it or not. Whereas sitting in this, I was like, I could walk out right now if I didn't have to review this because it's that bad.
I wouldn't be that harsh. It sounds weird. I don't love this film. I just don't think, there's people saying online that it's one of the worst films of the year. I've seen worse. Although maybe I had more fun with Madam Web. I don't know. I guess I think before we move on, and I know we have to move on, I feel like I have been the most positive out of the three of us for this movie. I guess the first film was done before James Gunn was brought in. That has probably steered some direction, but it's still, this year has seen so many films, I've mentioned Madam Web jokingly, that it just baffles me. And we always talk about it's a miracle that movies get made. Sometimes it baffles me that the movies that we do get made, that they get made. And it's, look, as I say, I'm the most upbeat of the three of us about this. And I guess I know we'll be talking about the film in our podcast with yourself, Nicole, and Adam as well. So if you want to tune in for that, check out the podcast. But for now, we're going to move on. And earlier this week, I got a chance to speak with local filmmaker Dominic O'Neill about his new film, Haunted Ulster Live, which is available from the 14th of October to rent or buy on VOD services.
We now have a very special live broadcast for Halloween. Spooky goings on in a Belfast home. This is Haunted Ulster Live. Viewer discretion is advised.
They've set up all sorts of impressive cameras, microphones and sensors around the house.
Stephen had to come into me a couple of times. He was that scared.
He needs me to guide him to the spirit world where he can find peace.
It's unmistakable.
The truth for the life. No one shall come to the Father except through me. There stands a whore of Satan.
I'd really prefer if we stop this.
You are not going to want to avert your eyes for even a second.
So that's a clip of Haunted Ulster Live, and I'm joined now by the film's writer and director, Dominic O'Neill. Dominic, pleasure to have you on the show. So, take me back to Halloween 1998. Tell us as much as you want our viewers and our listeners to know about Haunted Ulster Live going in.
So, thanks for having me on, Jim. Haunted Ulster Live is a live broadcast from a haunted house in Belfast. Well, a house where a family believes there's some poltergeist activity. And it is not UTV, they're TVNI, but if you kind of squint at the logo, it might look a bit like UTV. And they're investigating the house. So it's very much a kind of like a regional TV broadcast live from the house. And the broadcast, I suppose, starts to fall apart a little bit. And goes in unexpected places.
It's a low budget. We always say that it's guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. You rely on a lot of goodwill from people. As I always forget who says the quote, "It's a miracle any movie gets made." So tell me, Dominic, how did this movie get made?
Well, I started properly writing the script March 2020. I don't know if you remember March 2020, but something else significant happened. So I think a lot of screenwriters and filmmakers started new projects in March 2020. And then 2 years of working on the script with my producer, Will McConnell, talking to actors, talking to, like possible distributors and festivals and taking it to marketplaces. We finally worked up a project that we thought was cheap enough that we could do ourselves in a small period of time. We got on some amazing cast and crew. It helped that lockdown was on and off because a lot of cast and crew didn't have big, long jobs on, so they could sacrifice a week to work for much less than they would normally get, which was kind of how we made it. We made it in 6 days. If we had been shooting it in 3 weeks, we would never have got the cast and crew that we got. So everything just kind of came together. We had about 2 months of pre-production, got on board a brilliant production designer, Alexander Moore, great DP, Connor Losty, just fantastic people who were between projects. Tim Lyons, unbelievable first AD, who didn't bat an eyelid when I told him we wanted to shoot the film in 6 days. And it just all came together. And that's not even mentioning the cast, who I'm sure you'll agree are like the highlight, because the cast sell it, they really, and I made sure everybody knew this is funny, but it isn't really a comedy. Like it's not a parody. We're kind of like, it's a little bit of a love letter to like that kind of TV, but there's no winking at the camera. Everybody plays it pretty much straight. And that's something that I'm very happy with, because I think that's what kind of sells the realism of the broadcast a little bit before things go crazy.
It's had a pretty successful festival run. I know Fright Fest, Belfast Film Festival, further afield. What's been the festival's journey like as now we prepare for the next stage as it goes out to VOD release?
You're right. Fright Fest, incredible. For anybody to have their film screened in Leicester Square is obviously like a career highlight. The other thing about Fright Fest is it's got such a name in the horror world that as soon as you get into Fright Fest, your film's got a little bit of weight behind it. You start getting emails from people, you get interested parties, which is invaluable. Halloween night, Belfast Film Festival last year to a packed Screen 1 in the QFT was definitely a highlight. I think the other things are when your film plays in theaters all over the world, like in San Francisco or Mexico or Brazil, just festivals that you can't necessarily go to, but you get such a buzz knowing that all over the world are seeing it, and you gotta wonder what they make of it.
Anyone watching, listening to this can seek it out and watch it at home, maybe even on Halloween night if they're brave enough.
Yeah, absolutely. 14th of October. It's brilliant. Knowing that it's out in the world, knowing that I can stop banging on about it and people can just actually watch it is great. And then it's out of our hands. It's in the public domain, and I'm excited to see what people make of it.
Thank you very much, Dominic.
Cheers, Jim. Thank you.
People say if there were black footprints beside your bed, it means you'd been there.
We need the police, or bring the army in.
So that's my interview with Dominic O'Neill about Haunted Ulster live. As I said, it's available on VOD platforms from the 14th of October, and you'll be able to listen to a longer version of that interview on our podcast, since we are being shameless this week. And now we're going to talk about the film briefly, I guess, in the studio. Nicole, coming with you first. What do you think of the film?
So I was a wee bit sceptical going into it, just because I kind of thought that it would basically just be a Ghost Watch rip-off, and it almost kind of is. I wouldn't go as far as to say rip-off now, because I actually have a lot of very warm, fuzzy feelings to this movie. I ended up really, really enjoying it. It very much takes a lot from Ghost Watch, but but in a very, very Northern Irish way that just adds a lot of personality to it and makes it just really fun, especially for a Northern Irish audience. So yeah, I just ended up having a really, really good time with it. It scared me a couple of times as well. It got a couple of jumps out of me too. And I just was really pleasantly surprised by how much I ended up enjoying it.
I, like you, really pleasantly surprised by this film. And I say that because I've been really nervous about it since I first heard about it. Because Ghostwatch is something that is very special to me. It's something that absolutely traumatized, terrified me when I was younger. But here we get a film that is very much from the start holding a candle to that. I would say from about the halfway point, maybe even before that, it starts to do its own thing. I was really impressed by it. It works, it's effective, it's funny, it's scary, it's Northern Irish, but not too Northern Irish. I think outside of here, you get a sense of it's a love letter to local TV, and that low budget kind of, we all know everywhere in the world has their local channels, their local stations, their locally produced programs, and they'll always have a soft spot. So yeah, really impressed by this, really enjoyed it. Adam, key thing, or we're going to make this a 3 for 3.
Or indeed, thought it was great. Like you both said, Ghostwatch heavily influenced on this, but it's to a testament to it. This movie plays it straight, where it never feels like a mock or a spoof of Ghostwatch. It plays it straight. Very funny. You know, you have references like the WNUF Halloween special, and even towards the end, I kind of felt a reference and a nod to Twin Peaks: The Return. Plot-wise, that's hopefully not a spoiler. But yeah, great performances all around. The lead character of Jerry had me laughing at some of his under his breath comments about people and things. Like you say, Nicole, are very Northern Irish, but this is a movie that can play to a wider audience because it is very, you know, everybody has their own local access TV, you know, station, and you can understand the language of the type of TV show they're making, especially with the rise of the haunted house TV shows of the 2000s. But this is fantastic. I thought it's definitely worth. I would have loved to see it on the big screen, but watching it at home really just felt right.
And I love the fact, again with this, that we see, you know, behind the scenes, because you're seeing stuff when they're going for their VTs. I was intrigued, is this going to be, because there is some little mock ads. It's more so near the end, which I remember ads like that, particularly growing up here in Northern Ireland. But I just love it's like that sense of seeing, you know, behind the magic of it all going, as it's all kind of slowly descending into pure chaos. And of course it has a reference to the late great Gerry Anderson, presenter I absolutely adore. So that is Haunted Ulster Live. It's going to be available on VOD platforms to rent or buy here in the UK from the 14th of October. Now, as I say, we're in October, we're in spooky season, we've had a lot of horror this week, so why not have another one? Some might say watching Joker Folie Deux was horror enough for somebody in October, but last week we had the first of our pick of the screams with Gav Logan, and this week it's back to Gav with another choice.
This cannot be ignored.
Yes, we're doing it.
It's the end. Say goodbye.
Is this supposed to be scary?
Hi guys, it's Gav here from the Fright Club, and I'm back with this week's pick of the screams. This week I've chosen a 2019 escape room inspired slasher, Hunt. I'm trying to do a bit of a tie-in with Terrifier here because there's at least 2 clowns in this film, and clowns are all the rage now, so there you go. This was written by Scott Beck and Bryan Woods. It was also directed by them. You might know them because they also wrote a little film the year before this actually, called A Quiet Place, which made over $350 million for Paramount at the box office. So they know a little bit about horror. They are very talented writers. They wear their influences on their sleeves, and you can see it in this film as well. It's not the best film. It's a good slasher. It's quite low budget. and the characters are quite unlikable, which is never a good sign. The plot's pretty thin, but I think because it was only made on a few million, I think the film works for what it is, and it is a very easy watch on a spooky Halloween night. So it is available on Tubi now. Please go check it out. Enjoy.
Do you want to see my face?
So that's Gav's choice, Haunt. It's available on Tubi, which is a streaming service I had never heard of before Gav mentioned it, free service, so you can check that out. And here we have Haunt, group of teenagers, aren't the most likable of group of teens out there, but maybe just at that difficult age now where teenagers are annoying. Sorry to our teenage audience, but yeah, they find themselves in a haunted house. Is everything going on? Is it real? Is it not? Is something murky or seedier going on? I have mixed feelings about this. Adam, we always lead with Nicole so far. We're going to come to you first, Adam. What did you think of Haunt?
Weirdly, this is a movie I've seen a few times. It plays to its strengths of being sort of like an 80s slasher, and it's not much more than that, and it doesn't need to be more than that. You have a group of teenagers, all of them sort of insufferable, and you're kind of glad that they're getting picked off one by one. This is produced by Joe McElroy's favourite Hollywood director, Eli Roth, and you can sort of feel his influence on the horror aspects of this. They clearly took time to create each sort of slasher character in the maze itself. I think they do a good job of setting up the geography of the haunted house itself. You kind of always know where they're going next or where they need to escape to. It is a good movie. It's, it doesn't reinvent horror in any sort of way, but it is fun. And like I say, it's if you just want a movie where you see teens getting killed off Jason style, it's not the worst pick you could watch this Halloween.
I think once it reveals its hand fully, I think the tension kind of evaporates from everywhere. There's that sense of when you see films like what's actually going on. Is this an act? Is this a joke? Is there something more sinister at foot? And then once it finally shows itself, everything that's going on, it kind of loses the tension. It falls into that Friday the 13th kind of, as you've mentioned, kind of style and kind of mold of slasher. And I do think the ending is a bit underwhelming without going into spoilers, but I enjoyed it. My wife and I sat and watched it. We didn't want to turn it off or anything like that. Yeah, a pretty solid choice from Gav. If you're looking for something you haven't seen before this Halloween, it might be worth a shot. And as I said, it's on Tubi, which is free to stream. Nicole, I know we're nearly out of time. What was your thoughts on Haunt?
I've seen it a couple of times as well. The first time that I watched it, I really didn't care for it. I just thought it was really uninteresting. I'm a wee bit more positive on it now. I would kind of compare it a wee bit more to like the 2000s kind of slashers, which the Eli Roth stuff really makes sense there, especially with the gore. I think the effects that are done throughout it are really nasty, which kind of feels a bit reminiscent, not quite of Hostel, not that level, but reminiscent of like that kind of era. I do feel like it gets a wee bit bogged down in how seriously it takes itself, especially considering how stupid some of the stuff that happens in it, and the like wee reveal that you get a certain amount of time in that makes you go like, really? Is that what we're doing? Okay. But yeah, I had a better time with it the second time round than the first time, definitely. It's not something that will be in my Halloween rotation every year, but I'll pop it on once in a while for a wee watch.
Yeah, and by the sounds, again, for the second time today, it sounds like you enjoyed it much more than Joker Folie Deux. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is us pretty much out of time. So all that's left for me to do is thank my guests. So thank you very much, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for watching at home. We'll be back next week with another episode. But for now, until then, goodbye.